Hey, what's up everyone? This is Snicked back with another Royal Revolt 2 base review. Thanks for joining me. In this installment we're going to look at the base known as SorinM. Currently ranked around 135 on the global leaderboard with just shy of 3,600 trophies. This base belongs to SorinMC, who many of you who are out on Facebook, on the Royal Revolt 2 groups that are out there, on the Royal Revolt 2 official page, and then maybe even out on Flare Games Get Satisfaction Forum, are all acquainted with Sorin. He's really active in the Royal Revolt 2 community, and a really intelligent guy who's always thinking and interested in hearing the perspectives of others and sharing his own insights on different tactics and strategies for improving gameplay and improving his base, and is really helpful to others, and is really concerned as well about making the game as good as it can be. So he's had a lot of good input as far as the problems that we've seen recently and updates, and always kind of keeps a constructive attitude. So anyway, SorinMC, he's a really good guy, and so I'm really looking forward to checking out his base and seeing what he has in store for us here. So getting into the base itself, we'll first look at the mini-map. We'll then look at the waves, so those are the troops that Sorin has set up to attack us as we go in to do the raid, and the defensive structures, and basically just have a look at how everything holds together to see how coherent of an overall base strategy Sorin has put together. So looking at the mini-map itself, we see here what probably looks very familiar to many of you if you've been raiding or playing Royal Revolt 2 very long. Once a base gets to 27 tiles, there's a lot of versatility in terms of how you can design your base, but a lot of base designs end up conforming to a few major designs, or a few major general archetypes, and one of those is the clover design. And that's what Sorin has constructed here. This isn't a formal clover by any stretch. There's quite a few differences here, but the gist of it is this: after starting from the blue square at the very bottom there, there's an initial path that goes straight up toward the castle gate, and then there's a choke point, which is a major area where the troops and usually a firebolt tower are arranged and arrayed on the other side, in a place where the hero can't attack or can't get to, and it's designed that is designed as an area that is very difficult to get through, especially for your raiding party, maybe not so much for the hero. And you can see that that's exactly what's happened here. The base path goes straight up, there's a little squiggle there, but then we basically have what amounts to a 180-degree turn, where there's a parallel path that's stacked on top of it, and up and to the left of that, across the little gap there, that's where Sorin has, I'm sure, a firebolt tower situated, and then that's also where his ranged DPS units can camp out and fire across there and attempt to prevent the raid from progressing. And while the hero, who's much stronger, can get through there and go out into the clover, which is this big elongated loop, which is the bulk of the base layout itself, the raiding party, which consists of units that are much weaker and have far fewer hit points and don't move as fast, etc., and get distracted, frankly, attacking the ranged troops that are on the other side of the barrier, it can be really difficult to get them through the choke point. And that is the principal benefit of having that choke point there, is it forces the raiding party to slow down, so that the hero ideally is forced into essentially soloing the bulk of the base until he gets over and around to that choke point from the top side and is able to take out those ranged troops, take out that firebolt tower. But by then, he's almost to the gate itself, and that can become really important. Has become a lot more important, because if you don't have the support of your raiding party, even though as the hero you're much stronger and much faster at this point, it is really important to have them as you approach the castle gate, because oftentimes in challenging bases, we're getting to the castle gate square, which is there at the very top, with relatively low health, or maybe a little bit more on the defensive than we have been back before the castle gates. The castle gates damage was buffed so strongly by Flare last month. So as a result, once we approached the castle gate after having gone through a hard raid on all the different twists and turns of bases that we're fighting through, we end up in a place where we have the castle gate shooting at us, and we may have relatively little health. And if we don't have anything to distract the castle gate, it's really just us, our heal spell if we brought it along, and hoping that we're able to deal out enough DPS to bring the gate down in time. Maybe even having to retreat back a little bit into the base to regroup, get some health back before advancing again to try to bring down the castle gate. But if you have your raiding party with you, the benefit to that is that typically, and it may not be a complete rule, but in almost every case where I've tested this out, the castle gate will fire instead on your troops rather than your hero, which becomes hugely important, especially if you have low health. That can save you essential time to where you can heal, or even heal on your own as your castle gate is attacking your troops rather than you. And so it's very important to be able to bring your raiding party through the base with you, rather than leaving them back at a choke point, because by the time, in this case, and in most bases that are designed like this, by the time the hero gets out and around and if they're able to solo through the base and get around to the choke point from the top side to kind of take out everything there, releasing that pressure valve basically so that the raiding party can then go through the base, it's already usually too late, and you're already so close to the castle gate, and you really don't have enough time to wait for most of your troops to get through there. You can try to do it by using the scream tactic, but even then, it basically kind of messes up that strategy. So it's always good to have your troops with you, where and if at all possible. If they're not right with you, it's good to have them close behind. I'm a big advocate of using the scream, or calling your troops basically as often as you can in order to pull them through the base as quickly as possible. And all the more so now that it's become a beneficial tactic to have them up there with you at the castle gate in order to distract the castle gate itself. So having said that, once you get through that choke point here in Sorin's base, we go out into the loop, or the clover, even though it doesn't really look like a clover, and it's really just a big rectangle with 3 towers inside. Sorin has his towers arrayed and spaced out very well. You can notice here already the towers that look like they're in the corners and they're furthest away from the path, almost so far that you're like, hey, how are those even on the map and in use? Those are firebolt towers that are actually placed in those corners there. And those are really useful to have. They slow down the hero, and they ensure that the hero usually uses a cooldown or uses a spell to try to take them out. Because if he doesn't, oftentimes the targeting AI, or the computer, basically, for your pyromancers, your arblasters, your cannons, whatever you have coming up through the base behind you, will not lock on to those towers. And so what ends up happening is those towers can shoot at your troops with impunity, not having really to worry about being attacked, A, and B, if your troops just bypass those towers, then that's going to result in you not getting a full victory. It's not going to be that big of a deal if you miss a few towers in the corners and you get everything else. Maybe you get 95 or 96. It becomes a little bit more important at really high levels where you're scraping for every trophy, because if you miss 3 or 4 towers, then what might have been 7 or 8 trophies is now only 3 or 4. But aside from that, and especially in lower levels, it's not that big of a deal. But it is a tactic that if you're attempting to completely bring down the base, it does usually require an additional cooldown, and it really has the overall effect of slowing down the general progression through your base. And that's what Sorin has set up here, and he's done a really good job with. So once you're out and around through the clover structure, it's basically pretty straightforward going up into the gate. And as befits a higher level base, Sorin has blockades, firebolt towers, and skull towers, the three defensive features that we're all very accustomed to seeing now in high level bases. As far as his waves are concerned, first he has mortars, followed by paladins and pyromancers, arblasters, and then finally frosters. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to swap out my arblasters and bring in frosters instead, because the pyromancers are 100% weak to frosters, but also mortars, and this is something that a lot of people tend to forget. It's easy to do, just because it doesn't have like an elemental relationship. But mortars are also 100% weak to, to frost as well, or to ice as well. So I'm going to bring them in, and I think that that'll be helpful. Pyromancers being brought along principally to take out the firebolt towers, and then cannons as well to take out that key firebolt tower across from the choke point, and then just for general assistance with the blockades and the different towers, and then finally the castle gate as well. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and go into the base itself. And what I'll do is spawn a couple of frosters, a couple of pyromancers, and a cannon, and then just I'm going to alternate between mostly pyromancers, but some frosters as well. And the frosters are really, you know, they drop like flies. They have 1,030 hit points at max level, but they are good to have, and because they only cost 3 morale, they're pretty easy to spawn as well. Now what I'm going to do is use a blade storm here, and you'll notice that I'm able to take out both of those blockades. There was a skull tower here, which is actually a really good thing to have. Not much of a choke point per se, but is a good thing to have because skull towers are especially devastating to your troops. Not necessarily as much to your hero, but to your troops. Alright, so moving on up into the base here. You notice right here there's this skull tower, and then I have the firebolt tower being fired at me. Sorin, that's another one where you might consider bumping up and prioritizing the upgrade of that skull tower, just because it is far enough away from the firebolt tower that it's difficult to get over to that tower and take care of it while you're fighting the skull. And so the skull tower basically can kind of tank while your hero's distracted with that, and then your firebolt tower will be attacking the hero the entire time. So it's a good way to pair things up there. So here's a great example of, you see this often where you have a firebolt tower in the corner, and then you have a skull tower adjacent to it. I'm not sure why this is being used so prevalently by people. Here's another example where the firebolt tower is not in the corner. It's really easy to take down with Sonic Blast. So, and you'll notice there that my cannons were effective in killing the tower across from the choke point. And you'll see that if you look up at the very top of that meter, that most of my troops are able to make their way into, and have been able to make their way into the base with relative ease there. So that's really important. If I hadn't taken out that tower, it's only right now, really, that many troops would be able to get through. And they wouldn't be up here. They're still not up here with me, because I let some troops pass by me down through the gate. But here they come, and you'll notice here that instead of attacking me, the gate is attacking. Wow, right down to the wire. The gate was attacking my troops instead of me. And so that's what I was referring to earlier in terms of that tactic of using your troops and bringing your troops up with you and ensuring that they basically stay with you and keep pace with you so that they distract the castle gate and they attack, and that the castle gate attacks your troops instead of yourself. So Sorin, your base design is really good. There's a couple of areas for improvement there that I would suggest, I would consider. Really don't have a whole lot to offer in terms of a critique or in terms of constructive criticism. But I would say there were a couple of points there where we did have some tower clustering. I know it can be difficult not to cluster towers altogether. And at level where somebody doesn't have maybe like a max level Sonic Blast or Blade Storm, it might not be as much of a factor. But as you continue to climb the ranks and people continue to upgrade, you will see those tower clusters begin. It's going to have a negative or a law of diminishing returns basically for your defense, because people will begin to be able to take out those tower clusters more easily. So I would consider looking at that. And then also there were a couple of points with your blockade spacing that could perhaps be improved just a little bit. And by that I mean really in that first turn there, where it's easy to take out all 3 of those blockades, and then maybe down at the bottom of the little clover shape where there's a pair there. But other than that, those are minor points. you have any questions or comments, feel free to hit me up here or out on Facebook. Thanks.